Good evening, good morning, wherever you may be, streaming to you from the East Coast to the left coast and around the world on UCY.tv. This is All Things Apocalyptic with your host, best-selling post-apocalyptic author, G. Michael Hopf. Wow, I just love my bumper music. I don't know, do you guys like it? I really love it. I think it's really cool. So, how is everyone doing out there upon the fruited plain? Well, this week has definitely had some interesting news in it. You know, we have anything, you turn on the TV, you turn on the radio, you turn on the internet, you have war, riots, death, just an absolute total feeling of insecurity. No wonder, seriously, no wonder we have a population that feels anxious or on edge. I mean, come on. I mean, you cannot turn something on and see just all hell breaking loose somewhere around the world, or even in the Midwest or on the East Coast or left coast. So, like just this week, we have a new air war in Iraq, a continuing war between Hamas and Israel, a possible expansion of war between Russia and Israel, a possible expansion of war between Russia and Ukraine. The Ebola outbreak just keeps spreading. We have riots in the Midwest, and a U.S. border that is just porous, and thousands of people are just flooding across. I mean, it's just no wonder that the American mind is just feeling that somewhere, the end of their way of life is possibly close. Not since the height of the Cold War during the 1960s, do we have a population that feels that we will not leave a country that's greater than what we inherited to our children. I think that's sad. I think it's pathetic. I don't think it's right. Something needs to be done about it. You know, it's so often I go and I talk to people that many people now express that they envision some kind of apocalyptic event happening in their lifetime. Something will change the way they live. You know, I'm one of those people, and that's the reason why I wrote my best-selling series, The New World. I wrote it for two reasons. One was to showcase my vision of how things might end, and maybe, just maybe, hopefully, I could awaken some people to the possibilities that our way of life is just not guaranteed. We have to maintain it by staying vigilant. You know, I've always, I wrote my books because I've always liked the apocalyptic genre. And it's mainly because of the fascination I have with how things might look after an event. You know, that fascination led me to create my series. And it's also, given me this belief that things are just not static. The world is not static. So let me ask you this out there, everyone's listening right now. How many out there share a thought or belief that something will happen and that it's not a matter of if, but when? I mean, really, answer that question. Because I would guarantee most of you think it is not a matter of if. It's just when this is going to happen. When something is going to change our way of life. You know, how often have you expressed, this belief to your family or friends? And some of them might have a comment, and they're in disbelief. They have a comment that's like, no way, or never, or that's even crazy. What I ask those deniers is to study history, because I think history shows us, all throughout history, there have been apocalyptic events. Okay? So let's just take history and go back 100 years from today. All right? We see how things have changed in this country just in 100 years. Go back to 1914. We had the Great War started, right? To a lot of people, that was an apocalyptic event. Their way of life changed forever and never was the same again. Countries that entered into that war were not the same. In fact, they have whole boundaries and borders changed. Names of countries changed. That was a true apocalyptic event. I think what happens is people look at the apocalypse and they define it as like an asteroid or comet hitting, and then there's some kind of a mass extinction and everything ends or dies. And the thing is, I think that is true. That is an apocalyptic event. But isn't a true apocalypse an event? But it's actually not even the event. The apocalypse is the consequence of the event. So the event happens, and it's how we react to that, okay? And wasn't the Great Depression kind of an apocalyptic event where we had a complete economic turmoil and everything collapsed? And I think people don't look at it that way is because we recovered from that, we changed as a people, and we became a more prosperous nation after it. But it still was not a guarantee at that time when that event was happening, when the consequences of that event were going on, that we would come out of it. But it was an apocalyptic event, because I will have other guests on that will talk about the economy and how we're lurching toward or lunging toward an economic collapse, and they define that as an apocalyptic event. I believe we could be heading in that direction. So the Great Depression was an apocalyptic event that we happened to survive through. World War II was also an apocalyptic event. Ask those people that suffered and died, the tens of millions of people that perished in that war, a war that truly was global. So when we talk about the apocalypse on this show, we're going to talk about reality. These things happen, they have happened, they haven't happened all that long ago. So that brings me to our guest tonight. He is a very special guest, and we're going to talk about the apocalypse. We're going to talk about his fantastic book series. Some of you probably know him. Some have called him the Ghost. Some believe he is a former CIA operative. Others say that his innate survival skills came to him because he is an albino hairless Sasquatch. Others say his knowledge of everything was implanted in him when he was abducted by aliens. But I think that's just why he's angry. The whole alien thing, anal probe, that would make me angry too. Whoever he is or wherever he came from, he is here tonight, live from an undisclosed bunker location to share with us his views on all things apocalyptic. Ladies and gentlemen, best-selling author, survival expert, and most importantly for me, a good friend, Angry American. How you doing?
Good, Jeff. Good to be here, man. And first thing I want to say is I can neither confirm nor deny almost anything you just said, except for the probing. I will categorically deny that part. So everything else, though, it's up in the air.
So you actually might be an albino hairless Sasquatch?
They're still working on the genetic coding as we speak.
So how you doing tonight?
Good, man. Good. We finally got this move over and, getting things kind of settled down. So it's nice. It's nice to be back in the land of, 110% humidity and high temps.
And where would that be?
Oh, somewhere in the great peninsular of Florida. The
peninsular?
Yeah.
So, you obviously know what my show's about. For those that don't know, Angry American and I we're good friends. I've known him now for over a year now, and we talk quite a bit about different things. We share ideas and whatnot. And when he said he'd come on my show, I was really, really thrilled. One, because he's just he's a great writer. He's got a great vision for things. He's extremely professional and expert at what he does when he's in the field. But he's also a good friend. So I'm really, really happy to have you on. So the one thing that people know about you is that, or specifically your name has become very, 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 very popular because of your book series.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell everybody, for the few, and I can't believe there's anybody out there that hasn't heard about you, why don't you introduce yourself to those people, to those listeners who may not know who Angry American is?
Well, I'm just that. I'm the Angry American. I actually started out as a forum handle, and I wrote the first book going home on a forum. And when the people there badgered, pestered, and wouldn't give up on telling me to publish, I decided to publish under a pseudonym there, using the Angry American, because no one knew who I am. No one knows my name. If I'd have published it under my name, nothing would ever happen because nobody knows me. And so that's really how I got started. But the reason for the whole angry thing, which I love getting the Facebook comments, you're an author, you don't know how to spell. The definition for angry, the spelling I use, is a sarcastic, condescending, or taunting use of the word angry used on someone who is angry over something trivial or insignificant. Well, we're not angry over something trivial or insignificant. We're a lot of us are angry Americans, and they're pretty serious issues, like what you were just talking about, in particular with the economy and things like that, and this fundamental transformation that our country is currently being forced through. And then, so that was why I used that form handle, and I just stuck with it. I like it; it fits, and so I just roll with it now. It's like you said, it's kind of got its own brand behind it now, and it's a lot of fun. I like using it. So, and I think it's a pretty good description of a lot of us. Like I said, there's a lot of us that are pretty upset about this country right now, and so it's very apropos for our current state of the nation.
Yeah, I want to dive into your books, but that brought something up. I was working out today, and during my run, I came up with this other kind of concept for a monologue tonight. But you actually now touched on it, so I actually want to kind of talk about it. And I'll ask you what your thoughts are on this. And I agree with you. There's a lot of us that are out there that are angry by what we see happening to our country, by this transformation that is ongoing. But the thing is, though, eventually we have to leave the anger behind, and we have to direct it to a positive way. And what I'm meaning that is, like, it's so easy for people to sit and bitch and complain about what's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. But eventually we have to make a choice to do something about it. What looking at the world right now, what would you recommend that people do to help change the climate or change it back or stop this transformation that's ongoing?
There's a perpetual motion machine in place now. There's little we can do. There's been recent quotes that one congressman, I think from your lovely state of California, might have been California, when they're talking about the border, he said, "I will do what my president tells me to do." He's a congressman. He doesn't work for the president. He works for the people of the district that he represents. He forgot that. And that's the problem. No one up there gives a crap what we think, what we say, or what we want. That's not what it's about. Political service should be a burden to whoever's doing it. That's what our forefathers thought. And that's what it should be. It should be a burden. It should not be a place to go to enrich yourself and your friends. And that's what it's become. Just like they said when the public realizes they can vote themselves money, we're all in trouble. Well, they figured that out, and so have the politicians. And that's all this is about now. We're being fleeced, out of our pockets into theirs. And I don't know that we can actually stop it now. I mean, the only way you could stop it, in my opinion, is to turn over the entire Senate and the House. Completely turn it over. Everybody's got to go. And I believe there should be term limits for senators and congressmen as well. Nobody should be able to get in that deep and stay that long, just to make themselves rich. And it's a horrible thing, and that's all it's about. That's the Democrats claim they care about people, and conservatives claim they're concerned about fiscal responsibility and this and that. The Democrats care about people as long as they'll vote them in office so they keep getting rich, and Republicans care about fiscal conservatism as long as they're getting rich. When those guys stop getting rich, neither one of them are going to care anymore, and that just leaves us in the middle. There is no representation for us today. Let me correct that. For a vast number of us, there are those that are being represented, those that are living off the largesse of the federal government, be they corporate or citizens. They're being represented because they're getting paid. The rest of us are the ones that are doing the paying because it's coming out of our pockets.
And I agree with you completely. I've had conversations with people about term limits before. I know it was a big thing during the Gingrich revolution kind of thing, the Republican Revolution back in 1994, and that was part of their platform, which they soon got rid of, which is interesting. But yeah, I think that just like the President of the United States, I think all elected officials won. I mean, I would actually take it even a step further. Term limits, and then at the same time, I would make the job a part-time job. I would make sure that they actually don't get paid anything, rarely. So it actually truly is public service. And I would double down with that by making a part-time job where they actually have to go back and actually have to have a job somewhere.
Well, think about the fact that these guys vote their own salaries. They give themselves their own raises. And, the Senate in particular, they get their benefits for life. One term, They get paid for the rest of their lives. They get their high-class medical care, and they get their salaries, which are six-figure salaries, for life. That's absurd. Now, do you think that the public rose up and said, you guys are all doing such a good job that we think we should pay you for the rest of your life? No, hell no, we didn't do that. They did it for themselves. They're not interested in us. The whole thing, and I'm not going to bash Obama. I don't think there's any need to at this point, but the one thing that I always go back to when people ask about politics is when he was first elected, he said he'd have the most transparent administration in history. What was his very first act as soon as he was sworn in? What was the very first thing he did? Do you know what that was? The very first thing he did.
Enlighten us.
Sealed his own records. And I'm not saying that's to hide that he's not born here, whatever. I don't care about all that. But if you're a transparent administration, you're going to be the most transparent president on earth. Why is your very first act to start hiding stuff? That just speaks volumes to the whole system that they can even do that. If you're president of the United States and you're elected president, nothing should be able to be hidden from the public, in my opinion.
Well,
you
yeah.
chose to step up. You chose to be in the spotlight. Now open the doors and let everybody see what's in there.
Well, that's what's kind of happened too with as far as making everything, concealing everything. Whenever there is an issue that comes up, they just make sure everything's classified now. Things that really don't need to be classified, they just make sure it's classified so it never can be looked at. That's a habit that's done quite often now.
Oh yeah, they like to seal things up, and expand the machine. The machine's always growing. I had to laugh last night. The kids put a movie in the DVD player and it started playing. And you remember, we all know the old FBI warning that comes up. Well, now there's a DHS warning with it. Department of Homeland Security is somehow involved in media piracy. What the hell does that have to do with Department of Homeland Security? But they're there. The machine's always growing, and anywhere it can get its fingers in, it's going to get its fingers in. It's just absurd. If they can vote themselves raises, vote themselves money, benefits, and vote themselves the ability to skirt the very laws that they're passing, we're doomed, and that's what they have.
So I know you're probably very, very familiar with, there's a kind of an evolution of political systems that exist. It talks about dictatorships, a republic, democracies, oligarchies, monarchies, and things along that line. We're supposed to be, in the kind of the as it organically grows, a republic will eventually become a democracy, and then democracies tend to be very short-lived because they're not governed about, they don't have a constitution or a piece of paper that uses or governs them, or there's a rule of law. They just essentially govern themselves by the whim or by the majority all the time, so things can fluctuate quite often. But democracies don't tend to live long. They have a very short shelf life and soon become dictatorships or oligarchies. And a lot of people that are out there, I'm actually one that believes that we've actually lost our republic, or there's still kind of fragments of it that exist, kind of like the Roman Republic, but eventually they just... The body, the people's body, whether the House or the Senate, eventually gives their equal power away to the executive branch and allows the executive branch to essentially become a dictatorship. And I think that we're and that's why I think that's used so often. Those that don't believe in a republic, those political parties or political players that are out there tend to always want to use that we're in a democracy. And the fact is we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. Those are two different political systems. Democracies can be bastardized and can trample upon people's rights. A republic cannot. So what's your thought on where we sit as a political system?
Well, we are supposed to be a constitutional republic. In practice, we are a democratic republic. Those two things aren't supposed to necessarily work together, but that is kind of how it does work. I wish we would return to the good old republic, I don't think that'll ever happen. We're too far down the rabbit hole now. You can't get there. When the powers that be and the people that are putting them there argue over whether or not you have to identify yourself to cast a vote, You have to have ID to do everything else in this world, but somehow that's oppressive to say that we've got to prove that you actually live here and that you haven't voted someplace else before you cast your vote. You can't change that machine. It's just, we're arguing over the little things, and that's what they want us to do, is to focus on all these little things and argue over those and just miss the big picture.
So then that begs the question: what's next? And I just pulled up the Declaration of Independence, and so it was drafted by Jefferson, and in there and in the preamble he says, "Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light or transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of which they are accustomed." So what he's essentially saying there is that people will kind of deal with it and go along with it until it gets to the point where it's unbearable. Only then will they rise up. So what I'm hearing from you is, if there's no way to write it at the ballot box, how do you write it?
Well, that's what I was saying. I don't know that we can. I'm not one to call for revolution or support any thoughts thereof. It's not what I'm into right now. What I tell people is just to keep getting ready, just to keep preparing to be able to take care of yourself and your family, because there's no one else going to do it for you. Look what happened in St. Louis. It's sad that kid was killed. I don't know the details of who was right and who was wrong, but for those people to take to the streets and burn everything down and steal, and then go on TV and say that that's justified because something happened, that kind of mentality is the trouble that we have. I don't know that we're in a position, or that we'll ever be again in a position to actually try to change anything. I think it's too late. I don't think you can do it to the ballot box. Excuse me. So
then what? And then all right, your vision. Let's get a glimpse inside of your head. And that is, I don't. Do we really want to get a glimpse? But let's get a glimpse inside of your brain and see what does according to you, is your vision for what the country looks like in 20 years?
For me, what the country looks like in 20 years is the nightmare that Orwell envisioned, but much, much worse. I was kicked out of jury duty one time, the only time I've ever been called, for a very silly thing. They use the example of, let's say there's a stupid law. Everybody knows it's a stupid law. You get called up for jury duty, you get called for jury duty because this guy was arrested for wearing a pink shirt on Tuesday, and there's a law that says you can't wear a pink shirt on Tuesday, and it's stupid. Everybody knows it's stupid. Okay, but he was wearing a pink shirt. He can't deny it. Everybody knows. So we're gonna go down the line. Everybody tell how you would find him, and they go down the line. Guilty, guilty. They get to me, and I said not guilty. And they said, well, why would you say that? I said, because it's a stupid law. They're like, but he was, he in fact did it. He admitted to it, and you're saying that he's not guilty. I said, yeah, because a jury is the last line of defense for the citizenry. I said, it's our last line of defense from tyranny of those appointed to govern over us. And they said, well, you're wrong. You can't do that. And I said, no, we can do that. The jury can do that. We don't have to do anything. And I said, courts giving juries instructions is wrong. And then I asked simply, is this about jury nullification? And when I asked that, the courtroom just freaked out. And I was quickly thrown out of the courthouse, actually. So they're building a system to ensure their longevity by training everybody to do exactly what they're told. The jury duty thing's a small example, but think about it in everything else. Pat downs from the TSA, the law enforcement and the overreach that's getting worse every day. I'm a big supporter of law enforcement. Don't want anybody to think I'm not. But it is a sad fact that there are bad things happening there, and it's just getting worse. When I was in South Carolina, there was a 70-some-odd-year-old man stopped on a traffic stop. He stepped out of his truck, reached into the bed of his truck to get his cane, and the officer shot him 3 times. That was ruled justifiable by the department. The officer said he thought it was a shotgun. Now, if you or I at a stoplight shot somebody for taking a cane out of the back of their truck, we would go to prison. But it's okay for them to do it. And that's the problem. There's a us and there's a them. We're not supposed to have any kind of royalty in this country, but we certainly do. Constitution also says there'll be no titles of nobility, but we currently have a whole bunch of czars in the White House. So they're just rewriting the rules every day, and they're teaching us what our limits are, and sadly everybody's buying into it and going along with the program.
Yeah, I think there'd be a lot of people out there that would agree with your assessment that there appears to be, and I actually think that there is, two sets of rules. There's rules for the elite class, whether they be in the certain seats of power, that they can do whatever they choose to do, and that the laws don't affect them. They're essentially above the law. And see, in a constitutional republic, no one's above the law. Everyone is subject to it equally. So that's a problem. So when in 20 years, this is an apocalyptic kind of a thing. We slowly drift toward dictatorship then.
Absolutely, and an all-consuming dictatorship. I feel that the surveillance state that's forming right now, that is really in its infancy, it will become all-consuming. That they'll be able to know where everybody is at all times. I mean, think about 20 years. Think about when the internet started. It wasn't 20 years ago. It was point. Or it was right at 20 years ago, I guess, at this point. But think where we are now, and think about 20 years from now. How fast technology turns over these days compared to how fast technology was turning over 20 years ago. It just keeps getting faster and faster and quicker and quicker and quicker. I really believe that they're going to get to the point that where there won't even be the illusions of freedom anymore. There will be possibly the illusions of choice, but not freedom.
And then that choice, so what are you saying, that choice will be packaged that it's free will?
Yeah, because you'll assume that you have it because you can pick from this one or that one. They're both going to get you to the same place. They're both going to be the same thing. And I can't give you an example of what that is exactly at the moment. That little process is still turning over in my bean there. But the thought that you have a choice of what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, that kind of thing, is going to go away. Interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that we are slouching toward fascism is what I always like to use the term fascism because I think that's kind of where we're going, where it's going to be kind of not just the president will have more dictatorial powers, but at the same time it'll be also a corporate state at the same time where they will work hand in hand. Whether it's the Facebooks, the Googles, we'll be working hand in hand in providing data and information to the state, to the powers, to the fascist state, to our overlords, to keep us in line.
Oh, absolutely, and we're not slowly going there. People are begging for it and running as fast as they can go. You look at the Occupy movement; those idiots that and some of their gripes were legitimate. I don't argue that with them, about some of the bankers' schemes and things they were doing, but they're up there railing against corporate America at the same time using Facebook and Twitter. I mean, those are just as big of pieces of the machine as anything else. The DEA was just busted with paying a secretary at Amtrak. They wanted train records. They wanted passenger manifests. Amtrak basically said, go to court and get them. Well, they just went and found a secretary of some type, some lady that worked in Amtrak, and for 20 years paid her 40 G's a year to give them the manifests. Think about that. $20,000 or $40,000 a year for 20 years. They paid this lady. We can't get it legally. We don't have a way to justify getting these, but we want all this information, so we'll just go get it another way. And that's what they're doing. You talked about the rule of law. This country does not exist under the rule of law. We have an attorney general who tells state attorney generals not to enforce laws. We're not enforcing the immigration laws. They're calling these people refugees. They're inviting them here. They're running ads down there, and it's intended to overwhelm the system. I mean, it's Alinsky down the bore. It's 100%. You can read the books and you'll see exactly what they're doing, and they're doing it, and they're playing it out in public, and it's easy for anybody to see. But it's about the children. It's for the children. Well, these children are not coming alone. Some of them are, but a lot of them are not. And once they have those kids here, well, we've got to bring their mothers. They can't be, here without their mothers. We have to let them in now. And I'm all for immigration. I have a lot of respect for Mexicans. They're some of the hardest working people in the world. You work around these guys, they'll work you into the ground. But come here legally. If you try to go into Mexico illegally, you'll be deported. Look at that poor Marine that accidentally crossed the border. He's still in prison. But here, our government is subverting the rule of law and just doing what it wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the ICE website and look at the mission that they're supposed to be conducting, they're not doing any of it. And again, this isn't directed toward the hardworking men and women, the field agents that are out there busting their ass, doing all that they can do with what they're being given. But it's not that we don't have the resources. It's just that the resources are not on the border physically. They have incomplete fence lines, and then they're working these kind of drug interdiction. Because I'm out in the People's Republic of California, and you can go 40, 50 miles away from the border, and you have border checkpoints 50 miles away. Yeah. And they're there. They're saying to catch cartel or drugs and things like that, and it's a lot of resources spent there. And what's interesting is that it's indoctrinating. I've been saying this for years. It's indoctrinating Americans, just like the TSA checkpoints, to have checkpoints, to be stopped, to be searched. Like, we're the bad ones. Let's search the Americans. Let's inconvenience the citizenry, but not protect the border. And then, some interesting ICE numbers. I know some agents, and what's interesting, the numbers that are coming out of all these quote unquote refugees, but all these illegal aliens that are flooding across the border right now, only 20% are children. That's it. That's not a high number. So the other 80% are adults, and then out of that 80%, they're not all Hispanic from Central America. There are other nations, specifically nation states that harbor terrorism in the Middle East. So where their mission is to be down there to protect the United States, to keep us safe from terrorism. You can walk right across.
Oh yeah, you can literally walk right across. And you're right about the other nations. That someone here in chat just said they're here to vote. Prepper Chicks did, and that's you can't use the term illegal immigrant. That's just mean. You can't say that. I think that's probably correct. Illegal immigrant's not right because they're not an immigrant. They're trespassing. They entered the country illegally. But my current term for them is transient voters. Because that's what they want them here for.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone else in chat said it was to help support the Social Security Ponzi scheme. The only problem with that thought is those people are never going to pay into Social Security. They're simply going to collect out of the benefits of it. They're going to come into this country and start collecting benefits, and they're never going to pay into the system. It's not designed for them to pay into the system. It's designed to pay out of the system.
But the system can only withstand so much, and then there's collapse.
And that's the goal.
So your thoughts are the goal is to collapse the system, and then under the collapse of the system gives them justification to create emergency powers to take over.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in writing. There's a formal plan for it, and that's exactly what it says to do. Pile so many people in that it overpowers the system and it has to collapse. And I mean, well, what else do you think they're doing this for? There's no other reason for it. We simply do not have the money. Our deficit is huge. It is mathematically impossible at this time to ever pay it off by any means. It will never happen. So how much longer can this house of cards go?
No, I've been saying the same thing for a long time. And what's interesting now is that they're so brazen about it now. I mean, it's like in your face. You mentioned George Orwell earlier, and it's truly Orwellian. Like, these things are literally happening right in front of your eyes, and they say, no, you don't see anything. Well, you're not. That's not what you see. They're like telling you right to your face that's not what you're seeing, even though you're seeing it happen. It's mind-boggling. And the fact that there is a large percentage of Americans that are just saying, you're right, it's not happening.
Yeah, there was one of the senators, I forget which one of them, was railing against people the other day when they were talking about when the left for some reason started bringing up impeachment of Obama, and the right kept saying no, we're not going to do that, but the left's railing against them, and they're saying how they didn't impeach Bush when they could have, and this and that. Well, like him or hate him, Rush Limbaugh went back and found the transcripts where she supported the impeachment of Bush, and it's just. It's the bread and circuses thing. They're going to do this stuff to keep our attention away. Whenever they start doing something like that impeachment stuff, they started hollering about last week or whatever it was. It's really time to look around and say, what do they will not want us to see? Because when they're waving their right hand and say, look over here, look over here, look over here, you got to start looking around and saying, what is it they don't want me to see? Because there's something else going on. Just like that stuff in Iraq, it's horrible what's going on over there. But we armed those people. I mean, we created those people.
I know. They're essentially the Syrian rebels.
Yeah, that's exactly who they are.
So we arm them in Syria, and then we bomb them in Iraq. So, let's shift some gears here. There might be some listeners out here that aren't familiar with you, which is probably shocking. But they're probably, if they're not then familiar with you, they're probably not familiar with your incredible book series. Why don't you tell everyone listening about your book series?
All right. The Penguin hung the label on the Survivalist series. The first book, Going Home, is about a character, Morgan Carter. He's an every guy. He's not former military. He's not a special forces ninja or nothing. He's just a regular guy, but he's a prepper. He's made some preparations and he's done a few things, and he's 250 miles from home when the lights go out, when everything quits working. And so the first book is about the event happening there, and then him trying to get home to his family, because that's the only thing you think about. He realizes pretty quick something's going on, and that his only way home is to walk. And he grabs his pack out of his car, and he starts that 250-mile trek home. And the first book's just about that, him just trying to get back to his family. The second one is kind of picks up when he gets home and what's going on. We all like to say, communities will come together, we'll work together, and, I'll do this with my neighbors, I'll do that. I painted a little different picture of what happens when a community doesn't come together and how people will react. And then it just kind of goes on from there. The federal government does respond to this catastrophe, but like every other time they respond, it's not in our interest. And there becomes a bit of a split in the departments of the federal government into how to deal with this. So it brings the DHS in. Never did get to the TSA itches, but I lumped them kind of under the DHS because that's who they work for. But and no disrespect to like you said, to the line guys on DHS. A lot of them are my fans, and it cracks me up when they send me messages. And I like hearing from them. But it's the machine. It's the ones above them that are creating all these troubles for us, and that's really who this is aimed at.
Yeah, the overlords.
Mm-hmm.
So you're how many books in your series?
Well, I just finished the edits on number 5 Sunday night. Well, Monday morning at about 8:30. I stayed up all Sunday working on it until 8:30 Monday morning when I finally finished it and emailed it off to Kate. And so she's going to do another pass and then back to me, and it'll come back. Then we'll be done, and it'll hopefully release later this year. I'm hoping, but at this point, we're so far down the calendar.
Yeah, don't get your hopes up.
You know how this goes.
I know how this goes. For those that haven't picked up Angry Americans books, they're incredible. In fact, they're without a doubt, they are like future classics. And it's from prepper fiction or survivalist fiction or post-apocalyptic. They are incredible books to read. They're engaging, and I guarantee when you pick them up, you're going to blast through them, and then you're going to want to pick the next one up. They are quick reads. They're full of action as well as full of information. And I love that style that you do that because people are not just entertained; they're also given information that's very, very useful. And tell us a little bit why you did that, Because in some books, it's a little bit of a departure. Some people don't do that. It's not necessarily normal in a lot of commercial fiction that's out there.
Well, I go out of my way to put things in there, and I don't claim to be the ultimate survivor. I don't claim to be the guy that knows it all, and you can put me anywhere with nothing, and and I can do it. But I've spent a long time studying this stuff and practicing it too, and so I just try to weave those details into the story so that while it's hopefully entertaining, and from what people are telling me, they really like it. It is, but at the same time, you're able to learn something. That you're able to pick a little nugget up and go, hey, that might work for me, or I'm going to have to try that, or if something happens to you someday, it might spark in your mind and go, well, I remember reading something about that. Let me try this, and that's real important to me is to share that and to pass that along. Some of us, we don't have the time to go out and practice these things and learn these things, or even research some of this stuff. And when you get it delivered to you that way, especially in a story like that, I think it kind of piques people's interest, and they may go on and learn how to do it. It may get them going, and that's what I want to do. I've had so many people contact me and say that it's really sparked their interest. It's got them motivated. It's got them doing things, and that's one of the best things that I can hear from somebody. If this book helps get somebody get a little bit more prepared, or get into preparedness, or learn something, I mean that's an awesome payoff to me. And I love hearing people tell me that the books did that for them. I mean, that's just great.
Yeah. In your books, you use tell us about the weapon of choice that's used and essentially to bring down, or essentially to take the lights out, and why you chose that.
Well, we haven't quite got to the final reveal yet. Haven't gone that far yet in the story. There's a lot of illusion, or a lot of allusion to it as to what happened. But I think everybody will be surprised when some people probably have already figured it out when I say exactly what happened. And that'll be coming here, probably at book 6. But I got to tell folks that book 6 is going to be a long while in the coming. So they're going to have to wait a while. There's
a book 6? So how many books are going to be in the series?
I don't know. I've asked everybody how many they want. And if the story is still engaging, it's still entertaining, and it's still educational, and people want to read it, I'll keep putting them out there. This is a storyline that can go on for a long time. Remember Out of the Ashes with William Johnstone? What was that thing, like 18 books or something like that? I don't envision going that far with it, but if it's still engaging and people still want more of it, I'll write them up for them. These books are very easy for me to write. It's like these characters. I mean, I can be in every one of their heads at the same time. And in a scene when I'm writing, it's just so easy because if someone's saying something, what the other ones in the scene would say, it's just right there immediately. I don't have to stop and think, well, what would so and so do or how? No, it's there. It comes out faster than I can physically type it. So it's very easy for me to write these books, and I love writing them. I love the characters in them. I mean,
and you do a great job. I mean, really, you pump the books out. But I'm telling you, people, if you haven't read them, they're amazing. You have to pick them up. I'm going to put some links on the chat room here in a minute, so you can find them. Let's take a step back because I want you to kind of explain. I think some people know that how you started out, but yeah, you and I have talked for a while, and your story is, I think, inspirational to other people that may want to write too or have a story to tell. And your path to where you are today, being with Penguin, is definitely, it's the epitome of the American dream. So why don't you give people a quick kind of breakdown of how you got from writing on a forum to now being with a major publisher?
Well, when people ask me about that, especially other authors, if I'm someplace and someone realizes you're an author, they'll ask how you got published and everything, and I tell them purely by accident. I used to say I'm an author under duress because this isn't anything I ever set out to do. And in the beginning, it was, it really was not a plan. I wrote that story on a forum, and it was a lot of fun. It was just so fun to me because I would write a piece and post it, and then the next day I'd get up or, take a minute during my day and look at it and see all the replies and responses. And it was so cool because these people were so invested into it almost immediately too. And they would talk about the scenes, they would go back and forth, and they would always try to predict what was going to happen. And so it was a lot of fun for me to mess with them. And, kind of make left turns when they were expecting right turns, or something like that. And I really enjoyed doing it. And it got very, very popular. The first two books, Going Home and Surviving Home, I wrote both of those online. The two threads involved there had over 2 million views on them combined. So they were massively popular. The folks there on the readers there on the forum started pushing me to publish it, and I resisted for months, like 6 months, saying no one's going to want to read these, and no one's going to pay money for this. I'm not an author, and so I resisted them for a long time, and finally I gave in.
And when was that? When all of a sudden did you just give in and just say, hey, I'm gonna put these out, I'm gonna self-publish these, and what happened then?
Well, I went to self-publish it, and I paid a lot of money. I paid like $6,000 out of my pocket to turn those into books. And my whole reason for doing it was, look, I'll get you guys some books. Here they are. You want signed copies? I'll sign them for you. I've done it. Now leave me alone. That was really my attitude for it, because I still wasn't kind of buying it. Well, when in the self-published thing I used, the press I used, they put it on Amazon as an ebook. When it hit Amazon, it got my attention. Now the first edition was poor. I paid a lot of money, like I said, but didn't get what I paid for because I paid for editing. I'm a horrible writer.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I am. No, I'm talking in the technical sense.
Yeah, I hear you.
I mean, poor Kate. How she's not an alcoholic by now, I don't know.
She might be.
she might be. But
we know Phil is, but
I put her through. Yeah. But Phil's a fun alcoholic.
Phil, if you're listening, we know.
Yeah, Phil. Phil, you're welcome to come to Denver and go to the oh hell, what was that steakhouse? I just forgot the name of it. But anyway, so I wasn't that good. I'm not that good as a technical writer, and and I paid for editing. It didn't happen. But anyway, I was in the process of self-publishing the sequel because when it hit Amazon, it got my attention. It sold very, very well. And when I saw the numbers, I mean, it really had my attention, and I started to take it serious. And I was in the process of self-publishing the second one when Penguin contacted me, and they made me an offer on the first one. And I told them no. I said, I'm self-publishing a sequel right now. I'm just going to keep going with this. And they're like, well, just hold off on self-publishing that. Let's talk. And I'm like, no, I'm not interested. And that blew their mind. They couldn't believe that I said no to them. So anyway, they came back, I don't know, 3 weeks later or so, and Surviving Home had just published and was doing great. And they made me another offer, and it was a substantial offer. They really, really, really came up on their offer. And so I thought, mainstream publisher, big distribution and everything. So I did it, and think it would help me out, and it has. Penguin's been very good to me. I don't have too many complaints about them. So it happened purely by accident. Someone from the print house that I used forwarded my manuscripts on to, and they ended up at Penguin, and that's how this all happened. So when people say, how can I get published? My advice to them is build an audience first. Find a forum someplace, find somewhere the genre that you want to write in is popular, start there, and let those people tell you when it's time to publish your book. And the biggest piece of advice I'll give to them is listen to them. When they tell you that, listen to them, because I really resisted them for a long time, and I could have been doing this a lot sooner.
Yeah. Well, you've got you're the fourth book in the series, Forsaking Home, just came out.
Yeah.
Back June 24th. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Got it. And how's that looking right now? How's that doing out there?
Doing great. It made it all the way down to number 138 overall on Amazon, which is pretty good for a redneck in the woods writing books.
A hairless Sasquatch, yes, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty damn good.
For an albino hairless Sasquatch, that's not bad at all.
And so then book 5, any title reveal you want to give us right now on air?
Yeah, I ran a thing on my Facebook page trying to get people to guess the title. It took a little whipping. I did it once, and then no one got it, and they trailed off, and I had to get back there and stir them up again. But finally, somebody guessed it the other day. The fifth book's going to be called Resurrecting Home.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
And so that's the fifth one. And like I said, there will be another one, but it's going to be a long time in the waiting because I'm gonna be on the dark side of the moon for a while. I'm going to be out of contact for as a yet to be determined amount of time. I don't know how long I'm going to be gone, but I'll have a reveal for that coming later. I'm about to take a little hiatus away from the world.
Okay. Is there something you can share with us tonight about what's coming up or where you're going? Or
Well, I'll say that I'm going to be doing a TV show that will find out if I know half of what I think I know. Let's put it that way. So, a buddy of mine used to tell me all the time. I worked with a guy for years. He's a real good friend of mine, and I was an electrician for many, many, many years, heavy industrial stuff. And me and him would argue because he was an electrical instructor from the Navy, and he was very good. But me and him would argue all the time about things. And he would, when he got really mad at me, he'd tell me, if I knew half as much as I thought I did, I'd know twice as much as I actually do. So we're going to find out if he's right.
And so what's the time frame on this show, and when can people start looking for some information or find some information about what's happening with you in this?
Well, I'm hoping I can give some info out on it next month. I will say that I'll be going dark towards the last half of September.
Wow.
I'll be out of touch. I'll be unavailable, and all my stuff's going to kind of be sitting around waiting. However, while I am gone, this thing will start to air, so you'll be able to see it with a bit of a delay. And as soon as that comes around, I'll let everybody know what's going on. As soon as I can say something about it, I will, because it's gonna be really cool what we're doing. I think it's not the typical things that are being done now. There's no BS. This is going to be a real, honest to God trial. So
it's like a type of survival type show, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, it's going to be... No, I don't call it a survival. You can use the word survival, but that's not really what it's about. They're sitting trying to get by. I equate this more to a wilderness living sort of a situation.
Okay.
Having to make yourself at home, because the premise here isn't to find your way out or get rescued. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Interesting. So your fans have that to look forward to. Anything else that you're working on right now you'd like to share?
Well, we are getting a little bit of traction on possibly getting a trailer done here for the books. We're wanting to turn the books into a series. Think, Walking Dead or something along those lines. And I've got a production company I'm working with, some great guys who are not going to like the news that I got to tell them that I'm fixing to go away for a long time. But
no, they're not going to be happy about that.
No, they're not. But we're trying to get a trailer done right now to generate a little bit of interest to get a pilot started. And I actually have a script writer too that's just requested. He contacted me and requested a script, or requested the books to look at them. And so that might be something else entirely right there. But I hope to bring the guys that have been working with me in on it, because they're a great group of guys with some really cool toys. I mean, they've got the drones, they've got all the neat stuff. I went over to the house for a barbecue, and the guy walks in the room with an AK, levels it at me, pulls the trigger, and it was a prop gun. But it's cycled and everything just like a real AK. I mean, he scared the crap out of me to begin with. But it was a prop gun. I mean, I held the thing. I mean, it's heavy like an AK. It works like an AK. It was really, really cool. So they've got a lot of neat stuff.
So you've got a show coming out, and you're also now working on an adaptation. I'm sorry, to adapting your books for a TV show. So where can everyone find out about all the exciting stuff that's happening with you and your books?
There's my Facebook page. I saw Lori there posted the link to my Facebook a minute ago, and then there's my website, of course. It's angryamerican.net or .com. They both take you to the same place. There's a forum there you can pop in. We have a chat room in there as well, which I'm going to go into here in just a minute and see what those guys are doing over there. But you can get on the website and keep up with stuff. While I'm out, I'll have a couple people doing a little bit of stuff for me. So there'll still be some things coming up, postings and whatnot. But that's the places to look. Facebook I try to update all the time, and my Twitter feed, The Angry American, put stuff out there. But I'm just not a big tweeter. It's not. I don't know. I really try to. I just, I'm like, what the hell do I say when 146 characters? I don't know what to do.
I'm kind of the same way. I'm always struggling to figure out what I know my tweet feed is probably boring as hell to people. I can't just sit there. It's like a full-time job in order to manage that thing. I don't know how other people do it. I know they have these softwares and whatnot that does it, but I just find it difficult.
If I put something out on Twitter, it's because I got something to say. That's it. So, otherwise, I'm not going to waste people's time. If I got something interesting that I think somebody might be interested in, I'll put it out and say it. I am going to have a bunch of videos coming up here soon, though. I'm getting ready to do some more. I just launched a YouTube channel. It's The Angry American. There's only one little short video up there, but I'm getting ready to do some more. I've got a bunch of really, really cool gear coming. I'm going to do some reviews on some of that stuff, and we'll take it out and play with it a little bit. And some other videos, too. So I'm going to start doing some videos on some primitive skills, things like that, because I really like it, so...
Good. Well, hey, we've got looks like about another minute before we hit kind of this bumper music on the top of the hour. Real quick, just kind of recap as far as where people can find all of your books, as well as they can contact you, reach out to you, talk to you, etc. Go.
Yeah, hit me up on Facebook. It goes to my phone, so wherever I am, it is, and I'm real interactive. If you guys send me a message, ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. Always do. And you can find the books in any bookstore. You can get them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iBook, whatever that thing is that Apple does. But they're available anywhere. And they're doing great. I can't thank everybody enough for the support that they're giving me on these. It's been incredible. It's changed my life, guys. I can't say enough. Thank you.
Good. Well, everybody, get his books. You're going to love them. Stay in touch. He's got some exciting stuff happening. Angry American, thank you so much for coming out tonight. I really, really appreciate you being my guest, buddy.
Thanks for having me here, man. I was excited when you said you had this. And, if there's anything I can ever do to help, give me a shout. The book is called Resurrecting Home, Lori. Resurrecting Home.
Oh, there she is. Yeah, I see her.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, everybody, again, get his book and stay frosty out there. Bye.